So my original idea was to have this slide as a background for our discussion session, um, so we can explore around a few important questions or factors that may be supporting an Agile project or be the challenge or the threat or the resistance to your adoption of Agile. And the line at the bottom, think about the effort and the time required for transforming to an Agile culture, is also very important. It's also a line I borrowed from our interview protocol we use for our empirical research. So what do you guys think? Do you have any points you want to raise or discuss?
For me, add institutional supports there. We often try as project professionals to operate with a degree of agility, or if we try to actually implement and use agile project management approaches and methods, some of the challenges that we can actually have in that ambition or in that process is that sometimes the organizations within which we operate have got a very waterfall mindset. And that can create quite some tensions or a dichotomy between what we're trying to achieve in terms of an agile way as a project manager and what the organization's bureaucracy or their processes are designed in such a way to be very waterfall, very kind of systematic, and rather than more creative and iterative. So that can obviously quite be interesting at times. But let me hand over to our colleagues, Fred and Vasilis, who have joined us today, and thank you very much both for your time. Let's start off perhaps with Vasilis in terms of what is the condition of your project. And before we do that, though, what I would say is how do you see these 6 questions relating specifically to agile project management? So if we ask Vasilis, what is the conditions of your project? Are we asking him to answer that question from an agile perspective or just from in terms of general terms?
I would say from the general terms and see what's the constraints, limits, or requirements there that makes the project suitable for adoption of Agile or not. So
that's fine. So let's call this a roundtable discussion, and then what we can do is say, Vasilis, what is the conditions of your project, and then maybe a reflection towards the end about what would be the role of agile within these projects, if it plays any particular type of any particular type of role. Vasilis, what is the condition of your project?
That's a good question. I think most academic projects, like research projects, are largely waterfall, but with agile elements in them. Like, for example, I think when you read and you do like a literature review, it's quite waterfall. But maybe when you write the literature review, then you can have iterations. The same goes like when you do data collection, again, it's quite like a linear process and you do one thing after the other. Maybe you design your survey, you send it out, you get the responses. But again, when you kind of analyze or write the findings from your survey, for example, then you can have sprints almost. You can have like a 2-week sprint where you have like a draft and then you make changes. If it's a team effort, also maybe you do the first draft and then people give you feedback. So I think academic projects kind of have elements of both by nature, I would say, or like I'd like to have some elements of agile in there. Maybe others don't. I don't know. I like to, especially with writing, have iterations and like different versions. And I don't think anything ever ends. The time you have to work on it ends when you write stuff. So I think going completely agile in terms of like writing a paper or a book, for example, let's take a book as an example. I don't know how that would work. I don't exactly know if we could go completely agile with writing a book, for example. or if we would need to have like these chunks and these pieces of the process be more agile. But I definitely feel if you work in a team, in any team, anywhere, if the leader doesn't, support this and the organization doesn't support agile, I think it's really difficult. Like it's almost impossible for a person to change the mindset or for a team to change the mindset of the organization. I think support from the higher ups or from your colleagues in the team is like absolutely essential. That's my experience and my knowledge from friends that are in IT development, in software development. A lot of my friends work in software development.
Thank you, Fred. What's your conditions of your project in terms of within a mindset of Agile? I mean, what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, speaking from my own experience, from my PhD experience, maybe most relatable for the students since I'm a PhD student now as well. Although my project, as How just completed him for a while back, is a 3-year project. So it's a long time to see ahead. And it could sometimes be very difficult to look in the future and to see that actually to have a plan and to stick to that. So like it's also difficult to feel organized in that sense. So having agile mindset is quite important for me, at least, to try to adapt to. And it's difficult to know when you're doing a good job and bad job. I mean, since there's no real answer to when you know your PhD is completely done, you don't know if you're actually making the progress that you need sometimes. So I think that's a bit abstract in that sense in that PhD research. But it's another project I'm doing right now with APM that Nick is involved with as well. It's more defined in that sense. It's a 12 months project. So in that sense, there's a clear ending. So for me, there's been an easier way to split up the time and so on as well. And since that is a contract from the APM, the sponsors is the APM. So the mindset they have there, Daniel Nichols, which we all know, I believe, is quite agile in his approach, at least for this project. So that helped with me to divide my time and how that would how it would work in that sense. But for the students, for example, listening to this, it could be difficult to have an assignment, to have schoolwork, and to have a waterfall approach. In that sense, you need to have something done before you do something else. Well, actually, when you go into the second stage of writing an assignment, you might have a good idea for the first stage that you did, for example. So you might want to go back and do some changes that actually going to improve your work. So I think having an agile approach has definitely helped me, although you can always become better. And you do need to stay organized as well, which is a bit difficult to have that balance between seeing progress, moving forward, but still having that agile, iterative methods, in my sense.
These are the points I extracted from the extant literature, as well as from the empirical data collection we've done so far. There are definitely overlaps among the 6 factors. But I would suggest anyone who's thinking about Agile, taking on Agile project management practice approach, to consider whether your project is suitable for Agile from these 6 perspectives. And you can always add in your own perspectives and your own judgment, of course.